You shouldn't. But you know what I mean. I mean, this sounds so...
You know, it's funny because...
extraordinary when we think about it, because it's the way the world is.
So...
or might be.
Is it really true that what we see is all that's there? Or is it a case where we're just not physiologically designed to experience or see those dimensions, but we'll eventually find evidence of them?
Is there something else out there? I mean, you're a scientist who are exploring these kind of things.
The three spatial dimensions that we know about: left, right, forward, backward, up, down, and time.
I can understand space and I can understand time.
Right.
But I can't understand what might be next. Are we months, years away from understanding the next dimensions? That's
a really great question. It turns out that there will be an accelerator. So an particle accelerator accelerates protons to enormously high energy. And there's going to be a new one that turns on. It turns on in 2007, but really will begin operation in 2008. It's called the Large Hadron Collider, the LHC. It's going to be at an accelerator facility called CERN near Geneva.
The world's largest atom smasher.
Questions of our universe. It's a puzzle that's challenged scientists, scholars, and the religious.
And it was hailed as one of the most significant scientific experiments in history. Well, now the Large Hadron Collider is getting a new piece of kit. Scientists described it as an upgrade comparable from going from a Morris Minor car to a Formula One car.
Physicists believe they have finally found the Higgs boson. The initial discovery of the so-called God particle was first announced last July.
The Higgs boson, so far an elusive factor that in theory holds matter together.
The collider near Geneva, Switzerland, crashed two proton beams into each other at 3 times more force than ever before.
And we are privileged to witness this event in happening right before our eyes. We are in some sense recreating the process of creation itself.
I mean, does it lead you to believe that, damn it, we're just a small part of something very big?
Just a final thought, because you came up with a lovely line talking to our producer saying nature is tricky to understand. Every time you peel back a layer, the universe presents you with something else that you don't understand.
That's absolutely true.
The Large Hadron Collider was designed to replicate conditions seen shortly after the Big Bang. It broke down, though, soon after it was switched on in 2008.
But we'd also learned that nature is a real tease.
The title of your next book, perhaps.
Right, that there seem to be all these hints that we can put it together into a beautiful package and understand things more deeply, maybe learn about the dark matter. I hope that the LHC will take us beyond.
Professor Stephen Hawking say that we might just be around the corner from having a theory of everything. In my experience, that hasn't been the case. Every time we reveal something that we didn't know before, suddenly there are more unanswered questions.
And by the way, the next step beyond the Higgs boson is to find dark matter. We know that most of the universe is actually invisible. It keeps the Milky Way galaxy together, in fact.
So there's quite a lot of evidence for dark matter. If you look at the way galaxies rotate, they don't really fit in a model of the evolution of the universe if there's no dark matter. What's remarkable is you can build a self-consistent model of how the universe has evolved with just one type of dark matter.
Human beings like to be more on the control side, is the possibility of, for example, creating dark matter in the lab.
Then there's the question of why is there more matter than antimatter in the universe? This is really the speciality of the LHCb experiment. At the Big Bang, there should have been equal amounts of matter and antimatter created, and yet there's matter left over, which is good. We're here. It's a good thing, but we don't really understand why.
Now they hope the study will bring new insights into the nature of the cosmos and how it all came into being.
So we don't understand what dark matter is made of. We know it has to be something beyond what we know, and we don't understand why we are here. And we know that there must be something beyond what we know to explain that we are here. Okay, so I think that the LHC will for sure shed some light.
When people say that it's a leap forward from Morris Minor to Formula One car, are they right? Is it of that magnitude?
The technology has come on in leaps and bounds, as one would expect for frontier science.
But one thing that really struck me is how much the search for the Higgs boson captured the public's imagination to a significant extent, really. I mean, there was journalists from all over the world kind of queuing up to report on it. Why?
This gets to your question of whether this is a special time in history. I think it's a very special time in history. It's as if we're fish who've suddenly discovered that they live in water.
Why do you think that was the case? I don't remember a scientific event that caught the public's imagination to that level for a very long time.
Jerome Friedman, your former colleague at MIT, I think said that if we see evidence of what has been proposed by you, it will be extraordinary. It will shake up everything. It's pretty good.
That would be pretty good. I mean, it's true. I mean, it could be that we need to get to a little bit higher energy to learn more, but right now we think we will definitely learn something at the energies that we will explore. But there could be even more exotic phenomena like higher dimensional.
It's a really incremental step.
It's not incremental in the sense that it's 7 times the energy of current accelerators, so it really is the right energy to probe these questions. It's just that if you get a little bit more energy, you might learn a little more. For example, if you get to even higher energies, you might be able to make higher dimensional black holes if this idea is right. So there are new things that could occur with higher energy. But we do expect to be able to know the answers to these questions from the Large Hadron Collider. I just want to clarify.
What's likely to be another dimension?
What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, there are 4 dimensions. What would be a 5th? What would be a 6th?
Art makes life worth living. Because via art, I think we can discover beauty. Whereas science makes us live free. Because only with science and applying logic and requiring proof, we can be free from swallowing any rubbish propaganda. So I work at CERN so many years. I never noticed all these things are so beautiful. But I just want to show you some of the pictures here so that you can see how we at CERN took some photos, and you look at them and you are ému, you are sort of moved, because they contain worlds within the simple photographed item. You can see things that are there from reflection in the grass. You can see a ladder that goes to heaven. There is such a majority of devotion to the projects that it's sort of sublimination de l'environnement. So you can see several of them where you have the impression that it's like the end of the world as we know it.
LINAC 2 dates back to the 1970s, so the technology that's been used for LINAC 4 is considerably more advanced. It allows you to control those proton beams much more precisely, and also gives you control over much greater quantities of protons, which is what you need for investigating the experiments that they have on the Large Hadron Collider.
Where we're exploring the mysteries of matter. Now, the LHC is a particle accelerator. It's the largest, highest energy particle accelerator in the world.
We're talking about a machine that'll take us right to the beginning of time itself.
There will be people who try to piece out from it what were the different, they'll test the different ideas. So lots of people have suggested what might be there. But generally they're going to look for energetic particles, they're going to see where did they come from, what could have been, what was producing whatever they found.
Because when you're talking about a technology like this, or about geoengineering, this is something where even beginning to do the work in the laboratory means you are making a decision that could affect people outside the laboratory. And if you do that work behind closed doors, and make no mistake, virtually all of science is kept secret from everybody until the moment of publication, because the incentive system is set up such that if you tell somebody else your genius idea, some other lab is going to go off and do it, rush it, publish first, they get all the credit, you get none. This is an insane way to set up your scientific system. No one in their right mind building it from scratch would say we should do it this way, and yet we do, because that's the way we have always done it. It never worked great even before the cost of sharing information went to zero. But if you want to engage with a community, how can you do that if you're only telling them what the technology is when you've already gotten it working? Then it's too late. Then you're going to the FDA for regulatory approval. You get the public comment period. But no matter what people say, you can't do anything. It's too late. Done. Finished product.
Okay, first I wanted to say a little something about the video that I put up yesterday, because it actually is a re-upload of an older video that I did almost 2 years ago now. Wow, I can't believe it's already been that long. One of the first Flat Earth videos I did back in the fall of 2015. And then I kind of just threw together some stuff at the beginning, kind of connecting the, the obelisk and the phallus symbol and all that idea. It's just kind of, just to kind of try and find a creative way to kind of put that information back up. But I did want to apologize and mention just the audio quality. The reason that the audio quality is so bad was that, in the beginning I was still just kind of learning by trial and error on the audio recording side, the video editing side. I'd never done any of this before, and I'm still learning, obviously, but it's been something I've been thinking about for a while, actually, the idea of going back and just revisiting some of those early videos that I made, when Flat Earth was still fresh and new, and I was kind of still going through all these things that I'd been looking into in the months and years, leading up to the Flat Earth realization, and kind of going through and looking at everything through this kind of new perspective. And so the Masonic G and the generative principle, again, was an interesting thing that I saw a correlation between the idea of a pantheistic God, which I do think is really represented by just cosmic evolution. Cosmic evolution is essentially pantheistic at its core, because the universe is creating itself, right? It's very much in line with Kabbalah and all these other pantheistic mysticism ideas. But then kind of connected to that, of course, when you're dealing with the phallus symbolism and the male principle, it's coupled with the female, right? So much of the occult symbolism and belief systems at the end of the day just boils down to, plain old sex symbolism and sex magic. And this really shouldn't be surprising if you understand that this is kind of what's been at the core of so much of it all along to this day, with sex rituals and sex magic and, Aleister Crowley. And if you look into this long enough, you understand that that's at the core of so much of what they do, and, really believing that it's part of this pathway to their enlightenment, when in reality it's just a pathway into deeper and deeper depravity. That's why it's satanic. That's why it's a Luciferian deception, because you go through this whole labyrinth of teachings and secret knowledge and all that, and at the end of the day, all it's doing is trying to just turn everything upside down. And that's what we see in our society right now. So it's it's nothing new to most of you, but to some people it is. And that's kind of why I wanted to go back through some of this stuff, because I know a lot of, especially the ones I did in the first 6 months to a year, most people haven't gone back that far and watched every single video. Some people, surprisingly, a surprising number of you actually have gone back and watched a lot of the older videos, but I know there's just time to watch everything. So I just wanted to go back and revisit some of those, things I was looking at, and just for my own sake as well, to kind of go back and look at them anew and contemplate this. But anyways, so of course, a lot of people understand that the obelisk is a phallic symbol. It is sort of the male principle, whereas the dome symbolizes the womb and the female principle, so to speak. But again, understand that they're just, Satan's just using these things as symbolism to deceive people. In reality, he's just trying to destroy male and female, pervert God's creation. But the dome symbolism, especially in architecture and things like the Pantheon, was something I started to think about a lot, especially, right away. Especially because I had been looking at some videos that had come out just a few months, I think, before I really started looking at Flat Earth, and where the guy was talking about this Dior commercial, actually, and it's pretty bizarre, all the things they put in there, where she's in this, she's in this grand hallway. It's like a ballroom, and this fabric is unfurled from the ceiling of the dome, and then she climbs up it, ripping off her pearls. Supposedly is like, I don't know if that's like a rejection of materialism or something, but she comes out at the top, and then it's like, it's a whole new world, and it's gold, and it's like you're looking at the future. You're looking at sort of, this is like Luciferian eschatology. If we're to imagine that there's actually some real symbolism in here, then there's a lot about the fact that she comes out and it's this big futuristic looking city at the top. And, of course, the interpretation that was being given at the time I was watching it is that this is all dimensional symbolism, right? That they're talking about breaking through the physical dimensions that we are constrained to right now, and getting up into higher dimensions and into heaven itself and all this, which I thought was really interesting, because this commercial it's pretty weird. This is a Dior commercial, but what does this have to do with perfume? It's really hard to suggest what kind of meaning it could have other than esoteric meaning. And then you see this in a lot of commercials, and he's kind of going through different stuff and jumping around. But after I'm suddenly thinking about this idea of the ancient Hebrew cosmology, and there actually being some sort of literal firmament and literal dome that is combined with all the dimensional aspects of creation. So it's not swapping one out for the other. It's now you have sort of both. You have higher spiritual dimensions, but you also have a literal physical enclosure that is, from my speculations, as far as I know, the firmament could actually exist even in higher dimensions, and who knows what shape and size it actually is. But it seems like a pretty safe conclusion that no one gets in or out into the highest heaven, aside from without God allowing it. And so this ties into lots of possible agendas going on with things like CERN and all the quantum physics sorcery going on and all this. But this really just got me thinking, once I started thinking about, why are these domes so prevalent in both the ancient architecture, like the Pantheon, which is, whenever you watch a documentary on it or anything, they always make a big deal about it being, the first domed ceiling that, why did they go to such effort just to see if they could make a domed ceiling, with this hole in the top, this oculus, that's what's really interesting, is that there's always something significant at the apex of the dome, whether it's a hole or whether it's, a lot of times it's a star or a sun, or in certain churches it's actually Jesus painted on there, or and you just start thinking about all the Capitol buildings, all the usual places, in DC and London and the Vatican and the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem, which interestingly enough was originally built as a Byzantine church, actually, before it was eventually conquered and converted into a mosque. It wasn't originally a mosque, it was a church. All 50 states in the United States have their own Capitol building with a dome. And that's what's interesting to me, is because those are such new constructions, and I guess I would argue that all of them have been built in the era of the free Masonic control of America. And so every time they'd go and build one of these Greco-Roman looking buildings, You know, there has to be a reason why they insist on, you know, continually building these same type of structures. And then, you know, in other cultures you have things like the onion domes, and then you get into Eastern Asia where you have in Buddhism you have the stupas, and you know, maybe there's a similarity, maybe there's a similar connection somehow with those being sort of a microcosm depiction of the macro of the cosmos. So it's like a miniature model of the world. So yeah, it's interesting because she escapes out through the top. I mean, so if this is indeed sort of a esoteric depiction of what the elites think they're working towards, what they think they're going to accomplish, yeah, it definitely ties into a lot of stuff that now that more and more people are getting into the flat earth and enclosed cosmology, but then opting to explore the esoteric and the, you know, all the new age material more themselves and take it seriously. They start getting into the world tree idea and the toroid and the torus and, you know, all the stuff with the North Pole. I'm sure many of you are familiar with channels like Devin Maggi. I think he changed his channel name to something else now, but you know, this whole blood over intent gospel, this whole idea of that the North Pole is some kind of dimensional portal or literal portal. I mean, it's sometimes it's kind of hard to nail down how much of what they're talking about they believe in a literal sense and how much of it is metaphorical. And I think that's kind of the whole point, is that it's it's intentionally ambiguous. But yeah, there's scores and scores of people getting sucked into this blood over intent idea, where they are literally making a blood pact, signing a piece of paper and reciting these words, which, if you really understand what they're saying, you know, they're spouting a Luciferian doctrine, and it sound, you know, which I think on the surface sounds great, like to love all and exclude none, and there's this idea that you're freeing yourself from whatever contractual things you've been put under by the powers that be. So you want to break free. It's sort of like a new age version of the free man movement, you know, the emancipation from all the control systems. But it's, you know, it's totally occult, and it's the same occult idea. So you can take all these things and put them into an enclosed cosmology and still end up regurgitating the same occult belief systems and the same occult eschatologies. I mean, that's what they have, is an eschatology, because they believe they're going to escape through this portal, through this tree, through Yggdrasil, which again, if this was stuff that the elites were really truly trying to hide from the masses and didn't want you to learn about the world tree and didn't want you to learn about the North Pole and stuff, you know, they probably wouldn't be putting it in blockbuster movies like, you know, the Avengers and Captain America and stuff. I mean, where it's depicted as a portal, as a dimensional conduit, you know, whatever. I mean, it's in all the Thor movies. What do you think the Rainbow Bridge is? Like, why are they putting that in movies if it's just this big secret that they don't want people to know about? So it's a demonic deception. That's what all of this is. This is all a lie. And that's the thing that you have to understand, is that, okay, when you start digging into, you know, whether it's like ancient megalithic structures and architecture, or ancient belief systems, even if there's little kernels of truth, if they don't know the true God, if they weren't getting their information from the being who created everything, but rather from all these other fallen beings, these false gods, then it's always truth mixed with lies. It's always little bits of distorted truths mixed with the Luciferian lie of becoming a god yourself, of saving yourself, of, you know, that's what we see here. So yeah, I know I keep hitting upon that point again and again, but it really comes down to, I think, a simple matter of logic, or broken logic in the case of the people that really want to convince themselves that, you know, these esoteric truths, this occult knowledge is something that the elites, they don't want us to have. They're trying to hoard it for themselves, and they're trying to just keep us enslaved with these, you know, biblical ideas and the Christian God, and really trying to keep us away from realizing our own divinity and our own power, and because, you know, we'll rise up against them and all this. You know, this is what people just really, really want to believe so much of the time. But it's just, you can't look at the culture, you can't look at the entertainment industry and really defend this idea with, for any amount of time. It's just, it falls apart the second you actually take this idea and hold it up against the evidence. And this is why, again, if you start to understand things like theosophy and Blavatsky's secret doctrine, I mean, she wrote about this over 100 years ago, where this was the plan, was to eradicate Christianity, to destroy and discredit the Christian, the Bible and the Christian message, and to promote the ancient mystery school religion, to promote witchcraft, to promote the New Age. And this is the stated plan of the people that created the United Nations and created the banking system and created the, everything that we all supposedly hate in the truth movement. If you think you know anything about the powers that be and the New World Order and all the stuff they're doing to the environment and to our health and to all these things, you can't ignore, it's great to learn about all that stuff, about, chemtrails and GMOs and the technocracy and, the one world economic system, all the stuff they've been building for generations. The spiritual agenda is the most crucial component of that. So be honest with yourself when you look at what message the, New World Order, Illuminati-controlled media is really pushing. This commercial is just one tiny example amongst thousands and thousands. I think that's pretty much what I wanted to say about that. Thanks a lot.
Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video presentation. If you did, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, like the video, and share it on your favorite social media sites. There's a lot more to come, so stay tuned and we'll see you back next time.